Hello Internet! Today I'm taking a hike again. And today I would like to talk about video games. There is someone who I am close to. I'm pretty sure most of you will know who I'm talking about. They have this thing about video games that really kind of bugs me. Basically, this person started out as a Nintendo person. They like Legend of Zelda and Mario, things like that. Classic Nintendo. And eventually that fell off. And now they're really kind of anti-Nintendo. Now, I asked this person why they didn't like these games anymore, or at least why they didn't play the newer versions of the games, because they would always act in this superior manner. I only like Final Fantasy games because those are the ones with the intense storylines and they're so deep. They are so much better than that childish slop that is the Nintendo games. You know, that's how my mind processes things. It gives accents to people's thoughts and takes to the extreme whatever they were saying. I was thinking, okay, you haven't even played these games. How can you make a judgment call on that? You can't judge something unless you've played it yet. So eventually I asked them why they don't like Nintendo anymore, especially if growing up, that was a very large influencing factor on your childhood. So I asked the person why, and they told me, well, I don't like playing those video games anymore because none of my friends play those video games anymore. What? Okay, so I'm thinking, all right, with multiplayer games, that makes a little sense, because with multiplayer games, obviously, if your friends don't like playing multiplayer games, then you're not going to play them because it's no fun. Typically, multiplayer games by yourself are not that fun. I mean, I will admit that I've had fun playing multiplayer games by myself, but I am a very rare case. Most people need other people to play multiplayer games with them. Anyway. Okay, that point is so invalid. Ugh. For the most part, it is my belief that video games are things for individuals, not groups. Playing a video game is a lot like reading a book. It's an individual thing, it's an individual task, and every person who plays a video game is going to have a different experience and a different reaction to whatever they play. If I'm playing a video game, then I don't want someone leaning over my shoulder saying, then you do this, okay, now shoot that, okay, now what you gotta do is this. Because part of the thrill of a video game is to figure it out for yourself. Now, I know that not all people like figuring it out for themselves, but personally, that's how I like doing it. I mean, it's not like if you're reading a book, you have someone over your shoulder saying, oh, that was a great chapter, wasn't it? Okay, so in the next chapter, this happens. Oh, and make sure to pay attention for the alliteration in this chapter and the symbolism of the rose. You just don't have those kinds of interactions when you're reading a book, and you shouldn't have those kinds of things when you're playing a video game. I understand that it is kind of sad if you play a video game that you really love, but then none of your friends have played it. But at the same time, you shouldn't play video games just so you can talk about it with your friends, because then that limits your scope of what you can play. Limiting the scope of what you can play just limits you as a gamer, and then you shouldn't even be called a gamer. You should just be called a poser, because you only care about the things that your friends talk about. Also, it eliminates from the wonderful feeling that you have if you're the first person in your group to play a video game, and then you make everyone else in your group play the video game, and then everyone is so happy that they've played this video game, and you can all talk about it, and then you yourself feel extremely happy because you brought joy into everyone else's lives by introducing that video game to them. Just like a book, everyone is going to react and have different feelings about a video game. So let's take, for example, a video game that I recently finished. Finally finished it. Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. Personally, I think Majora's Mask is one of the most unique Legend of Zelda games, and it has one of the best concepts, and it also has one of the best moods. And it's really sad that there aren't more Legend of Zelda games like Majora's Mask. The main crux of Majora's Mask is loneliness. The main antagonist, Skull Kid, or at least who you think the main antagonist is, Skull Kid is sad because his 4 friends left him, so now he's dealing with it in a less than productive way. Tattle, your little fairy friend, has been left behind by Skull Kid and Tail. And then the main player themselves are extremely lonely because they are bearing the burden of the entire world on their shoulders. And even when you go into town and you think that you're making these connections with people and you're helping them, at the end of the 3 days you have to turn back time, and then everything that you did, all the nice deeds, are erased. You go back and you see these people and they've forgotten about you. So just from being the hero of the story, it isolates you from all the other characters. Now, if loneliness is the theme, then clearly people are going to have different reactions to it. For example, if you yourself were a person that dealt with loneliness a lot, then I'm sure you would really identify with the game and you would love it. Whereas a person who hasn't really felt loneliness that much, they've never had to deal with that emotion, then it might seem a little strange and they might feel more disconnected from the game. Now, everyone's going to have their own reaction to it, and either way, if you don't have someone to talk about it with, that doesn't mean that whatever feeling that you had when you finished the game or whatever reaction you got from it, it doesn't mean it was useless just because no one else has played the game. I know for a fact that Caroline has played Majora's Mask countless times, and I'm pretty damn sure that for most of that time she didn't have anyone to really talk about the game with. And yet, Majora's Mask is still one of Caroline's favorite games, if not her favorite game. And there are plenty of games that I've played, like Chrono Trigger, for example, that none of my friends have finished. And I'm incredibly thankful that I got to play that game because it's so old, and now there are so many people who haven't played it. It's such an underrated game. And it does make me sad that no one else has played it, but not because I don't have anyone to talk about it with, but more because I pity those people who have not played that game. The point is, you don't need your friends to talk about video games with. I mean, it's always a more enjoyable thing after you finish a video game if you have people to talk about it with, but part of the reason that talking to people about video games is so enjoyable is because everyone reacts to it differently and everyone has their own take on it. And if you don't have the drive to just play a video game yourself and then pass it on to your friends, then you suck. And it's just so sad that you have crippled into something like that. You have crippled yourself. Wild beast in the poppies. Come on, wild beast. You can do it. Do you see this? Do you see this? This is innovation here. You raise the soil around in a nice little circle, and then you put the bag on it and you fill it with water, and it's a drinking bowl. Luna, come on! Oh yes, look at that. Great success. Great success. Oh yes, oh yes.